Steel Reserve, huh? Nice. I've got a Sierra Nevada Hazy Little Thing IPA and a Triptych Really Dank Meme. So I got a couple IPAs here. I'm good to go.
I got Citradelic.
Oh, okay. That's a good one.
Yeah, rather tasty.
I got my Snapper here, so.
No narrow gauge, huh?
Not tonight. A little broke tonight.
Yeah.
They canned some coffee not too long ago. And
Dude, they're canning new stuff like every week.
I know.
I'm pissed I live so far away every time I see it.
Well, we don't live overly close either.
Yeah.
But my wife works about 10 minutes from where Geoff works. So I'm like, yeah, I've been trying to get her to go buy shit for me on her way back home from work.
Honey, it's Christmas time.
Exactly. Now, if it's Christmas, that means she's off. She's off for like 3 weeks.
Nice.
Yeah, she's lucky.
This portion of the Drunken Lullabies podcast is brought to you by discussmetal.com and the beer we are drinking.
There you go.
I left my high school reunion to be here, so...
Being professional.
And if you left a high school reunion to drink Steel Reserve while listening to Project 86... then you are ready for this episode of Discography Discussion. I am Joe. That is Dan. That is Geoff. It's Industrial December.
Is it?
It's Christmas time. We're talking about Project 86 with Dustin of Drunken Lullabies.
The voice.
And
That's
Drunken
me.
the Movies. I love that podcast.
I'm happy to hear that.
I really do, man. That's so much fun. I really want to be on one. That's like
You were on one.
I want to be on Drunken the Movies.
Oh, Drunken the Movies, absolutely.
Oh, dude, that's awesome.
It is pretty cool, dude. Like, and I don't know. I definitely like syncing the movie up so I can get kind of some of the nuance of it.
Yeah, after I went back in your back catalog and you told me that you did Big Trouble in Little China, I was like, okay.
Oh, yeah.
Oh my God, that's like my childhood. I grew up on John Carpenter. That guy is my freaking hero.
That was a funny one. We got very drunk by the end of that one.
Yeah, you did.
Can relate to that in a big way. I get drunk by the end of these usually every time.
Yeah, Kim Cattrall is my first crush. Not because of Porky's. Yeah, I know. Isn't that messed up? It was actually because of Big Trouble in Little China, not in the whenever they're swimming through the sewers and she's got the wet T-shirt. I was like,
oh yeah,
boobs.
This is the story of Geoff when he was 7.
Yeah, the 80s were a magical time.
Isn't it interesting how the 80s are now nostalgic enough to be referenced in every piece of media that comes out?
Being a hipster over there, Joe?
I'm trying to be.
Yeah, that's the more messed up thing is like I see like what my nieces wear and like how they do their hair. I'm like, are you guys going to a New Kids on the Block concert? Because that's what you look like.
Really, Geoff, we're talking about Project 86, and you got to bring up New Kids on the Block.
Hey, Andrew wanted to talk about Lana Del Rey. I think New Kids on the Block will work just fine.
All right, fair enough. So, tonight's topic is Project 86, and this is a band that I have been listening to probably for the past 17 to 18 years. So that's,
Really, I've been doing like the last 17, 18 days.
Yeah, I know.
Welcome to the family, Geoff.
But yeah, Project 86 was like the first heavy band that kind of bridged the gap for me from, listening to stuff like Korn and,
Carmen,
Limp Bizkit and POD and stuff like that. Project 86
Striper,
was just a little bit heavier.
Petra.
Shut up. Project 86 was just a little bit heavier than those bands. And so, it wasn't long before I was into, a lot heavier stuff. And their album, Drawing Black Lines, that came out in 2000 was really my gateway into heavy music.
Okay.
And if you listen to Project 86 today, you're going to hear not the same band, but you're definitely going to hear the same voice.
Andrew the band, yeah.
I tell you what, Schwab's got a hell of a voice, man. Even if I have to admit, I'm not always some of their song choices I'm not a huge fan of, but man, I can listen to Andrew all freaking day.
Yep.
That dude's got some pipes.
It's like a more angry Mark Solomon, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, before we get too deep into Project 86, I'm going to take the time to say thank you to everyone for listening to this podcast. Thank you for listening and for subscribing. If you are not a subscriber, you can find everything Discography Discussion at discussmetal.com. We are on Google Play. We are on iTunes. We are on Stitcher. We are on TuneIn Radio. So if you have an Amazon Echo product, you can say to it, Alexa, play the latest episode of Discography Discussion, and she will. We're also on Facebook and on Twitter at discussmetal. Be sure to like, favorite, and subscribe. It really helps us out. It lets us know you're listening, and Dan is going to tell us all about 5-star reviews.
We love 5-star reviews here on Discography Discussion.
Do we?
We do.
Who doesn't?
Yeah,
No
they're great. However, give us whatever kind of feedback you think we deserve. But
Dan.
if you like the podcast but like hate Geoff, it's completely understandable. And
I get that a lot.
just don't let that affect our star rating. But make sure to put it in the review anyway. But no, these 5-star reviews really help our podcast out in the sense that, when people are searching for a metal podcast or a music podcast, we're more likely to show up in those search results the more reviews that we have. So be honest, but if you do like the podcast, definitely give it a 5-star rating.
And now Dustin is going to tell us all about Drunken Lullabies.
Yeah, so I'm the host of a show called Drunken Lullabies. Been doing it over 2 years now, sponsored by Distill Brewery in Bloomington, Illinois.
Oh, yeah.
Actually, it's Normal, but most people know Bloomington better, I guess. But yeah, it's a craft beer and indie music podcast, and a couple of you guys sat in on an episode we did not too long ago at a narrow gauge brewery in Florissant.
Yes.
Dan and Geoff got tipsy with me, had a good time with them, and they got to drink for free.
And the other Geoff Hardesty.
And the other Geoff Hardesty, the brewmaster at Narrow Gauge. But yeah, I've been doing this for a little while. We met thanks to the Nashville Rock and Pod Expo in Nashville. I did a live show on stage, tasting beers with a few other hosts of other shows, and you guys were in the audience and seemed to dig what I was doing. So we chatted afterwards and said, yeah, we need to do something down the road together. And like I said, had you guys on my show. Now it sounds like you want to get drunk on the couch with me for Drunk at the Movies.
We do.
Absolutely.
We can probably do a road trip version. I can come to you guys at some point and we can do a movie.
Or vice versa. We have no problem. We're not that far away from each other.
Yeah.
It's a morning drive. It's not too bad.
Well, it gives me an excuse to come to St. Louis and go to a Cardinal game or something.
Oh, even better. Yeah.
If we can do it in my Star Wars theater room.
Yeah, there you go.
That was going to be my suggestion because it's Geoff's theater room.
Next Christmas, we'll watch the Star Wars Christmas special.
Oh, geez, we're going to have to be drunk to get through that thing.
Oh, yeah.
I watched that sober, and that was rough. Like,
yeah, it's weird.
Rest of Chewie's family. Oh, my God.
All right, Geoff, you have to drink every time they speak.
Yeah.
And you have to fill this 5-gallon bucket with puke.
Oh, it won't take but 5 minutes.
Wow.
As soon as the grandpa starts getting off with his interactive video porn or whatever
that's
is.
isn't that the best?
Yeah, it's pretty messed up.
You're starting a new podcast as well, are you not?
Yeah, as if 2 weren't enough. I'm doing a 3rd now. It's called Craft Beer Digest, and it is brought to you by White Oak Brewing in Normal, Illinois. And I sit down with Brian. He's one of the owners of White Oak, and we talk insider beer stuff. It's a lot more informative what's going on in the Central Illinois beer scene. We're going to talk to different people in the industry, different breweries. And yeah, it's going to be shorter episodes, less drunkenness, more information, but still going to be a fun time. And it's got 2 episodes out as of next week. So we're getting approved through all the proper avenues and apps. But if you just look up Craft Beer Digest, you'll find it.
Very cool. In unison.
Jinx.
Geoff and I we've gotten to that point now.
So, Dan, tell me about Project 86.
Like I said earlier, Project 86 is they're a rock band for the most part. They're on the heavier side, especially at the beginning of their career. And they've kind of gone all over the map over the past 2 decades.
Orange County, California, right?
Yes.
And the original band members, the ones that we all think of whenever we think of Project 86, is Andrew Schwab.
And everybody else.
That's what Schwab wants you to think, I think.
Randy Torres.
I know their names.
Stephen Dahl.
Yes.
I don't remember Alex's last name.
It's okay. He's Alex the drummer.
No.
Yeah, I just go by first names anyway.
I think they used to call him a Hammer before. Yeah.
Well, I mean, you mentioned jumping on with drawing black lines. I started listening to them as soon as the self-titled came out. So I'm closing in on 20 years now, which dates me a little bit. But I heard them the first time it was on some Tooth and Nail sampler, and Run was on there. It was probably like a songs from the penalty box or something like that. But that was basically when it was like, oh, these guys are a Christian Rage Against the Machine.
Yeah.
I can dig that. And, the album came out, bought it. And, I'm sure we'll get more into the album specifically. But, once Drawing Black Lines came out, they took off way heavier and just better music.
Absolutely.
I was a much bigger fan with that album.
As much as I want to talk about Drawing Black Lines, I've never heard a better segue into the self-titled Project 86, Dan.
Oh, yeah.
1998. I believe your review of this was exactly the same as Dustin's. Oh, it's a
Rage
Christian
Against the
Project
Machine.
Against the It's a Rage Against the Machine band.
Project Against the Machine.
Yeah.
It was amazing. I'm calling it that.
And what's funny is if you listen to their demo, I used to be on the Project 86 message board back when those were a thing. And
was that on GeoCities?
Something like that. No, it was the official Project86.com.
I thought it was Angel Fire.
I was a member of Team Black, which was their fan club. And so I got access to this forum that, they every now and again somebody from the band or somebody that knew the band would post stuff that you wouldn't normally be able to get your hands on. And so they actually had the original Project 86 demo. And what's interesting about that demo is that it sounds even more like Rage Against the Machine than the self-titled does.
Really?
Right down to Andrew's vocals.
Huh.
Like he even has a Zach Della Rocha. Is it Della Rocha?
Zachary Della Rocha.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm terrible at pronouncing stuff like that. And he sounds exactly like him. I mean, it's uncanny. So it's really interesting how on the self-titled, he really kind of came out of the gate. I'm like, if you'd never heard that demo, you would think that he had that original vocal from the very beginning.
So is there any type of history or documentation where they say, we listened to this and we thought we would do this, but then we kind of became what we were? Or is that all just same date, same time, same bat channel?
Yeah, I was wondering what you guys think of it now, listening to it. It's like 18 years after the fact. I don't really think it holds up too well.
It's very boring for a Project 86 record.
It's very repetitive. A lot of the songs sound the same. There's only like 3 tracks on there that I would classify as repeat listeners. If I was making like a playlist of my favorite Project songs, probably only 3 tracks would make it.
I guarantee Pipe Dream's on there.
Definitely.
Yeah, I was going to say that.
Because that's the one that sounds most like Drawing Black Lines.
Yeah.
Without really sounding like that. I've got a huge... you got to throw 6 Sirens on there because Sonny from POD was on it.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
That one's pretty good. And I'm actually a really big fan of When Darkness Reigns. Even though that's a boring as hell song.
Yeah, it doesn't do it for me.
I like it because it has kind of an epic feel. And it didn't really work. But I remember loving it back in the day because, I had Drawing Black Lines first, but after hearing Drawing Black Lines, it was a pretty quick rush to the store to buy the self-titled.
Yeah.
I'd say the self-titles, the eponymous, is a product of the times. And I think that's part of the reason why I think for the most part, we agree it doesn't hold up. It just as somebody who is kind of a neophyte going back and listening to it, because I was never introduced until we had Andrew on the show. It just didn't scratch any itch for me. And it definitely felt dated other than a handful of tracks like you're stating?
Part of it may be because it was self-produced. It was them and a guy, I'm looking at the liner notes now, named Brian Karlstrom. I'm not sure what his relationship was with them, but once they moved on to the next album with a quote-unquote legit producer, you can definitely hear that they benefited from having somebody else at the boards and giving them direction.
I agree. And I find it interesting since Andrew was on, that his love of the Mars Volta and the stuff that he really liked from the Mars Volta was a lot of the stuff that they self-produced. And like we liked Delouse in the Comatorium or whatever the heck it's called.
Yeah, that's my favorite.
That's everybody's favorite, I think.
Well, no, outside of Andrew, Andrew liked a lot of the stuff that they self-produced. That was like his bread and butter.
Yeah, well, I think this record, though, is kind of like... I think they actually had a lot of good ideas on this record, but it just sounds kind of tired.
Yeah.
The energy
very droning.
Yeah, and like it's like I could see it being like hot shit in 1998. Because obviously it was, or the band wouldn't have gotten where, I don't remember hearing anybody be like, oh yeah, Project 86, they're a boring band or whatever. And I think it's just one of those, like Geoff said, a product of the times, in that it's not really something that we can appreciate with modern ears, especially since we've heard a ton of albums by the same band.
Speaking of modern ears, I'm going to come back to the self-titled once we get caught up, because it's 1998. It's a band's first release. These are the songs they had, or at least the best songs they had. And this leads us into the next record, which I feel like we could talk about Drawing Black Lines at the end of the episode just to keep the suspense up, but that's not how we do things. Because everybody wants to talk about Drawing Black Lines. So, 2000, Drawing Black Lines, Project 86.
Holy shit.
You're going to hear holy shit a lot out of us because...
Well, for the next couple hours.
Project 86 has a lot of peak awesome, and then come back to the middle, and then fall off a little bit, and then peak awesome again. So they continuously deliver, and this was the first time they really delivered.
Yeah.
From a production standpoint, because I like to get that out of the way because it's boring to most people, there's nothing really different going on here versus the self-titled, other than the additional guitars and the additional effects.
Dude,
but the songs are just above and beyond better.
Everything sounds way bigger on this release.
Yeah, I agree. And what makes it even better for me was the addition of letting Randy sing background vocals instead of it just being Andrew doing, the rapping like on the first record. Randy's got a good voice, and him coming in with those harmonies and stuff and taking co-lead on some of the songs, that really expanded their sound for sure.
I miss the Randy Torres vocal.
Totally miss it.
To this day.
To me, it's an integral part of their sound.
That was the template for all the music we made.
Well, yeah, and it's notably gone now. Yeah, like when Joe and I used to play in bands, that's what we would do. I did all the screaming, and Joe would do the melodic singing. That was our whole thing.
Yeah, what's funny is whenever you first showed me your guys' band, I'm like, I like the stuff where there's like clean singing mixed in. Remember that?
Yeah, and I was like, fuck you. Yeah.
And you're like, I didn't do the clean singing. That was the guitar player, Joe.
Yeah, see, I was a clean singer too. That all my friends that I was jamming with, they wanted to go heavy. I'm like, no, man, there's got to be melody. I can't scream and yell all the time.
I like that dichotomy.
You get used to it.
That's why I like melodic death metal, is because there's both. I want my cake and eat it too.
Well, I like In Flames, but I also like mindless shit like Napalm Death.
I thought you were going to say mindless self-indulgence, and I was about to be like, really, dude? We're talking about that?
Yeah, secret. Yeah.
This ain't no Planet of No Apes.
Right. Okay, so...
I've seen them live 3 times, actually.
Nice.
They're entertaining as hell live.
Yeah.
It's just kind of silly on the record.
Drawing Black Lines, I was texting Dan, and I was like, I dig this. I actually like this quite a bit. It's a little heavier. I like I like Andrew's vocals a ton, and I like the layering of the clean vocals behind it. That's a big deal to me. That's like putting the carrot on the stick in front of me. I will run all day long for that.
I don't know if this was when he found his voice, but this is when he first found his voice.
Yeah, I mean he definitely does more clean singing later on, but yeah, there's definitely some of that on this.
He also had a sick ass afro during this era.
Yes, he did.
Yeah, I think that's where Dan gets his.
No, that's genetics.
My hair just grows like that.
Well, I hope you don't go. Oh, we love you, Andrew, but you can't pull it off anymore.
Well, I think he was bald when we interviewed him.
He's been shaved head ever since the video for One Armed Man. I thought
he was like straight up Professor X.
I know. Well, that's what I'm trying to get at. Is he couldn't get the afro back even if he wanted to. He'd have to.
How do you know, Geoff? What do you mean?
Because we did video chat, you can tell.
We'll call him up. We'll be like, dude, you're not going to believe what. Yeah.
You're not going to believe what Geoff said about your hair, man.
Joe, get him on the Skype right now. Call him. Dial out Andrew Schwab. Yes. We'll see what happens.
I can see that now. Can I help you guys?
He's going to come through Skype and kick my ass. That's what's going to happen.
I'm pretty sure he's going to be like, oh, God, not these guys again, and hit the ignore button. That's what I would do.
That's what I'd do if you called me too.
Anyway, the first time I was showing Joe Project 86, one of his original comments that has stuck with me all these years later has been, he goes, "That is the best use of somebody that doesn't sing I've ever heard."
Yeah,
that is exactly what I said.
Because Schwab screams and yells, but it's not in the traditional sense. This isn't like a Poison the Well or Zao or something like that. Like it's
aggressive talking.
It is. It's like the OC Supertones has a very similar vocal style to Andrew Schwab, but the first time my wife heard it, she's like, "Oh, well, he just sounds like really angry Supertones." And I thought that was kind of funny with them all being from Orange County.
Right.
I was thinking it was like a better version of Zebrahead.
Yeah, I could hear that. But what was striking about this record is that, the self-titled didn't even hint at this.
No.
I mean, this was ridiculous.
People talk about the sophomore slump. This is what the debut album should have been.
Yes.
And for most people, this is what the debut album was.
That's true.
And for a lot of people like me who are Spotify junkies, I mean, if you didn't know any better,
the first one on there.
Yeah, if you didn't know any better, you would think this was the debut album.
I think that's what Andrew wants everyone to think.
But we know better.
Yeah.
Yes.
We have memories and physical media.
Yes.
I will say this, Dustin. You're the only person I know that has Spotify running more than I do. Holy shit, dude.
I listen to a lot of music. I listen for at least 8 hours a day at work. And I've got tons of playlists. I listen at home a lot as well. But yeah, I ran a record store for a decade, so I'm just used to being around music all day long. And I can't tolerate the Muzak at the bank. Thank God I'm in the drive-thru, and I can just listen to music on my phone all day.
I feel you, man. I used to run a Sam Goody, so I ran one of their test stores in New Markets whenever Best Buy first bought them, and it was going to be like mini Best Buys. So I got to have carte blanche. And I'm like, oh, sweet. We're going to be listening to In Flames and 30 Seconds to Mars when they were still real heavy. Actually,
what?
Yeah, well, Capricorn definitely had plenty of heavy elements in it, dude. You know it does.
What?
Because you listen to it too and you like it.
I like it, but I wouldn't call it heavy.
It's got plenty of heavy.
Shit doesn't sound anything like Obituary.
I didn't say it was metal. I said it was heavy.
It's not as heavy as Stein's theme.
There's plenty of Project 86 that's heavy, and it's not metal.
Well, hey, let's get back on that.
Yeah.
So Drawing Black Lines is also interesting in the sense that it's right on the cusp between being straight hardcore, but also retaining that sense of hard rock that we had in the early 2000s.
Speaking of the first thing somebody said about a band, I believe your word about Drawing Black Lines was these vocals are so hardcore.
Well, I had nothing to compare it to. Like I said, this was my This was my bridge. This is the first album I had where the dude literally pretty much screamed from beginning to end.
Now, were you guys going to Cornerstone around this era at all?
Absolutely.
Okay, because that's my neck of the woods. That's like a 40-minute drive for me.
Yeah.
And I remember seeing them around this time, and he like painted his face to look like a skeleton or something. He had the afro, and he was like in kung fu clothes, and you know, it was quite a stage performance.
Are you certain you weren't watching Five Iron Frenzy? Because that sounds like something Reese Roper would have done.
Oh, Reese and the gang, they dressed up in Star Trek costumes one time. I remember that.
So that's really cool that you got to see Project 86 during the Drawing Black Lines era, because I didn't. I don't think I saw the band live until well after Truthless Heroes had come out.
Okay. I remember they had a pre-release show on the main stage right before Truthless Heroes came out and debuted some of the songs there. That was pretty good. But yeah, I remember seeing them on smaller stages. By that time, they were, you know, much bigger.
Well, standout tracks on Drawing Black Lines?
Honestly, I don't skip a track until the last two.
Well, 23, I never listened to all of that. That's just noise.
But yeah, I mean, if they would have ended that at 10 tracks and kept it a tight, you know, shorter record, it all killer, no filler. But, you know,
Absolutely.
There's a couple at the end that I just, you know, if I'm going to skip anything, that's what I'm going to skip.
Standout tracks for me were Stein's theme, One Arm Man, obviously. Don't Say Me Against Me, because then you're just listing the track listing.
We're going to end up listing the track listing by the time we're done.
No, I like Set Me Up. I like Chimes. But man, that song PS still creeps the hell out of me, dude.
Oh, dude. Yeah, I texted Dan earlier this week, and I'm like, dude, I'm digging PS. I love that fucking song, man. That's great. With that weird... has anybody, like, done the... to find out what it is that she's saying?
Well, I contributed to the, it wasn't Kickstarter, it was like something, Pledge Music for the new album.
Yeah.
And Andrew does a huge write-up on Drawing Black Lines.
Oh, okay.
In there, and he did say what they were saying, but none of it was like significant. It was just like random phrases that the band thought sounded cool.
I'm just kind of curious on what she said more than anything else. I mean, it didn't have to be like...
Have you guys read the lyrics for that song? It's about porn addiction, right?
Dan, who are you talking to here?
Right, it's about porn addiction, though, right? Has anybody else ever read the lyrics to that song?
I'm pretty sure you're the one that told me it's about porn addiction, so my opinion on that is Stein from you.
I don't know if it is or not. It's just...
Innocence sold out to addiction.
Yeah.
I see that's one of the big lines in the song.
Yeah.
I'm looking at the liner notes right now. It pays to have CDs still.
Yeah.
Yeah, it does. I tell you what, that's the only thing I really miss with everything going digital. I love liner notes like there's no tomorrow.
I really like Star as well.
Yeah, I don't read lyrics, but I read the liner notes. How messed up is that?
Yeah, Star is great.
Which that would have never made the first record. You know, it's Randy singing a quiet song, and yeah, that was one of the things like, oh, this is a totally different band. So
yeah, but
I dig it.
It fits here though. Because this is a dark record. You know, the whole idea of drawing black lines. I mean, it could not be more well represented musically than it is, and for a Christian rock album, no less.
Well, this got him a major label deal.
Oh, yeah.
Thanks to POD, they got signed to Atlantic or whatever, and I turned so many people on to this record with just, you know, like, oh, you need to check out this band. This album's amazing, and I think BEC put it out first. Then they got the Atlantic deal, and they re-released it. But I still have the original BEC release.
Yeah, this was the record that was in every guitar magazine. Everybody that talked about music would talk about Korn and would talk about Nine Inch Nails, and then I would bust out Drunken Black Lines. Who is that?
No, that's not Who Is It.
And
that's
unfortunately,
a damn album.
the best way in 2000 to get people to listen to Christian music was to just not tell them.
Yeah.
And then they listen to a band like Project 86, and they're like, this is really, really fucking good. And then I tell them, yeah, you know that Christian music you say you hate? Yeah? You know how you say you hate POD? Yeah?
Merry Christmas.
Merry fucking Christmas.
I
listen
wish...
to these Blindside records.
Well, no, it's funny that you say that. I mean, it's like you're reading my freaking mind, because I'm a huge Blindside fan. And if I would have known and had expanded my horizons just a tiny bit more, Drawing Black Lines would have been way up my alley back in 2000. And that was back when I was running the Sam Goody. I would have played the shit out of this stuff. You know, here's something else that's funny. As far as Drawing Black Lines, I'm looking at Joe's screen on Google Play Music. This is how I can tell that he legitimately loves this band. Because most of the time when we do reviews, it's just the 4 or 5 times that he's listened to the album. And we're in the 30s and 40s on the songs that he's listened to on this. So I know he legitimately loves this album.
Absolutely.
Which it's great, because I'm really happy that we actually get to listen and review stuff that Joe's digging, because I guess we ought to mention it. Joe's kind of like the unsung hero of our podcast. He does everything for us.
Tell me more about me.
Yeah, I know. I have no...
He's relaxing. He's sitting back.
I have no gag reflex, so I can keep going. Dan and I, most of the time, we just posture and talk shit the whole time, and Joe just has to cut everything out that I say that's terrible. But this is one episode I know for a fact that Joe is thoroughly going to enjoy, because he loves this band. So I'm done.
So before we move on to Truthless Heroes...
Oh, shit.
I'm leaving all of that in.
I'm sure you are.
So before we move on to Truthless Heroes, Dustin, I have to ask you, because everybody that loves Project 86 has an opinion about Truthless Heroes. Mm-hmm. What is your opinion of Truthless Heroes?
It is my second favorite album of theirs.
Most people that have listened to at least half of their music, either Truthless Heroes is their favorite record, or it's in their top 2.
Yeah.
Dan, would you agree with that?
Probably.
It's almost beat out by one that we'll get into a little bit later, but...
Yeah, it's actually number 3 for me.
Yeah, it was a fantastic follow-up for Drawing Black Lines, for sure.
It was a different follow-up, if only for the Andrew Schwab singing, which was not common. And I find it interesting that we talked about it with him on our episode with the Mars Volta, where he mentioned that it was just a painful process as far as the producer was, and you can go back and listen to that at any time you want on iTunes or Google Play Music. But for the fans, Dan is one of the best examples I have, because his thing was always, I'm the lead vocalist, I need to do as much as I possibly can to be the lead vocalist. And this was the first time that the lead vocalist did everything. He did the screaming, he did the singing. Randy's still in there, but it wasn't a staple of Schwab at the time to be a singer. And years would go by, and he would sing more and more and more. I like Truthless Heroes, and I think, except for the filler, it's probably their best record.
Those.
I think it's their best record. It's not my favorite record.
See, I actually like Drawing Black Lines more than Truthless Heroes.
Well, I do, absolutely.
That's a pretty common opinion.
Okay.
No, and I'm the same way. I think people.
Well, I'm a noob, so that's why I'm saying it the way I am.
It's weird too, because I've heard people misquote me about this record a lot over the years, and usually in a case like this, I'm gonna say, "What the fuck is this band? They aren't the band that I signed up for. They're not the same." But I'm the way I was back then in 2002 is not like me now, in the sense that now I'm more apt to well, what the hell, it doesn't sound like Drawing Black Lines, so I don't want it. But back then it was more of a, holy shit, there's a new Project 86 album out. And so I listened to this fucker at least 1,000 times. at least. And
now, is that an attempt to make yourself like it?
No.
Or you genuinely
no,
dug
Buddy
it,
and I listened to this shit on the way to school every day.
For a year and a half.
For a long ass time. And I was completely sold by it. I was sold by the concept of it, the truthless hero, the unnamed hero, and all that, and the weird lyrics and the weird music and the more melodic singing and stuff. I just thought it all sounded really, really cool and different. And despite what people tell you about Truthless Heroes being a softer album than Drawing Black Lines, there's still some pretty badass songs on Truthless Heroes. There's like SMC and shit.
Does that stand for
something? So. Wait, you mean it doesn't stand for that?
That's what I always thought.
And then there was another Boredom Movement, which I thought was just a fucking terrifying song.
How much do you think, because this was like their first album made for Atlantic, how much do you think they were pushing it to be more melodic and they wanted something that was going to be radio friendly, alternative radio friendly?
Well, according to Andrew, that's all it was. Like they just pushed.
Really?
I actually have his book. It's called It's All Downhill From Here on the Road to Project 86. And he talks a lot about that. He talks about, how at one point he says that, like, I'm standing there in the booth and they're telling me to sing, sing, sing. And all I want to do is scream, scream, scream. And he said, over the course of time, Atlantic Records more or less stripped away all of the elements that made their previous records successful.
That's interesting.
I believe his quote from our episode was, they wanted radio singles.
Yeah, he did say that.
Sounds like an Atlantic Records decision, so I'm inclined to believe him. And even if it didn't sound like an Atlantic Records decision, I'm inclined to believe him. He was there.
Well, I mean, major record label, radio singles, the two kind of go hand in hand.
With the exception of the filler, and I shouldn't call it filler, the transition songs that are on this record, almost every song is good. And we like to joke about Hollow Again in our circle because of a appearance they made at Cornerstone where it felt like they sang Hollow Again for 20 minutes straight. Fuck. To this day, Dan's like, it actually happened. I'm not kidding. He encored Hollow Again 7 times.
That was just... Okay, I like the album, and I really like it mostly for the nostalgia of it, because now it takes me back to being in high school. So you can never really replace that. Even if a record is total shit, if you loved it when you were in high school, then you're going to kind of always love it. And so I think part of my enjoyment of this record is nostalgia. Listening to it now, like with the times I listened to it this week, I definitely see errors, like not errors, but like flaws in it. Like a lot of the songs tend to go on forever and they tend to be very repetitive. Like that song Know What It Means, just over and over. Do you know what it means? Neither do I, over and
Neither
over
do
and
I.
over and over and over again.
Yeah.
And then there was remember what it's like to be you, remember what it's like to be me, it was just, come on, like those songs were just there just to fill up fucking tracks.
That's kind of how Rage was back in the day too, though. Like the lyrics are about 10 lines and it's just repeated all the time. So I kind of saw that as like, oh, so this is like the first album and the second album smashed up into like this weird amalgam or something. That's kind of how I looked at it, but I get what you're saying.
And that's just a modern take. I don't hate those songs. It's just listening to it. Like if I was coming in fresh like Geoff was, I'd probably be shitting all over this record.
Yeah, it's all right, but it's yeah.
Damn, son.
Yeah, we've had Andrew on. I don't want to shit on his stuff. It didn't scratch that itch for me. There's a lot of these albums that we had another band on that we did with Eric Hall. He is legend, and I felt the same way about it. It's like that. It's a tweener band. It's kind of rock. It's kind of metal, and it's like a gateway to both. And I just wish it would be one or the other. And with Andrew's vocals, I mean, the dude's got pipes. I want them to like beat the shit out of me when I'm listening to their stuff.
So what you're saying is you want to listen to songs to burn your bridges by.
Well, no, they did that already. They did. It's called Drawing Black Lines. They beat your ass to death on that record.
Yeah, but I wanted it. I'm a masochist. I want it even more because
you're Bill Murray in Little Shop of Horrors.
Yeah, because Drawing Black Lines was like that was actually the second album I listened to. In the, what is it, Picket Fence Cartel or whatever. That's the first one I listened to. But yeah, this was just like a huge letdown for me, to be truthful with you. And there's quite a few albums that I was
truthless.
I was kind of truthfully I was bummed. I'm like, he's got so many skills. He's got such an amazing voice. And I wanted them to be able to use it more, and it just didn't happen for me. I was really disappointed, to be truthful with you, going through a lot of the discography. But that's what I didn't grow up on these guys. I mean, what I grew up on, I guarantee you most people would shit on. I mean, I grew up on like a ton of industrial, so that's why I'm so excited about December for our podcast. Like, God Loves Underwater is like my freaking heroes. And most people, if they listen to them, they're like, those guys suck. And I get it. I'm like, it's what you grew up listening to, what you love. And for me, it just, a lot of their albums just didn't age well. And this is definitely one of them. This was an attempt for radio play back in the early 2000s that's when I hated radio. I still hate radio now. And it's what I dislike about popular music.
I think this is what it sounds like when you take a band like Project 86 and expect them and insist that they create radio singles.
Yeah, you're right. I mean,
there's a couple in there.
It's not the band itself that I hate. It's the record labels that fuck them up. I mean, Drawing Black Lines is kick-ass. I love that album. I really do. I like that's in the regular rotation now. I genuinely like it. But most of their stuff after that, I could, sure, it's great for the background, but collectively, overall, I'm not overly interested. There's not a standout track that says, holy shit, I gotta listen to this band. Drawing Black Lines is a holy shit, I gotta listen to this album. But the rest of the stuff, yeah, there's a lot of it afterwards I'm not interested in.
I'd say give me that SMC and Little Green Men. Definitely standout tracks for me.
A lot of the tracks that I like on this record are kind of the more lame ones. So I really like Soma, Hollow Again. Yeah,
I like Hollow Again a lot.
As much as we make fun of it.
Yeah, oh God, I make fun of that song all the time, but I do love it.
That was the song that when the album was coming out, you could go to project86.com, join the mailing list, and they'd send you an MP3. It's one of the first legitimate MP3s I ever downloaded.
48 minutes later, you could listen to it.
Exactly.
Yeah, you got your 56K modem, but you're only getting like 24.4 or 26K download.
Last Meal I like a lot, mostly because Mark Solomon's on there, and that dude's my hero. And so... and I really like that, how that song has almost kind of like a surfer bridge. Did you ever notice that? And like I guess it's about 3/4 into the song, and he's like, "The very beast that you create's the one that'll slay you in the end." And he goes 2, 2, 3, 4, and it goes into this like, he starts yelling like, "You'll never take me alive," and they're playing this like bass segment that's like
kind of sounding,
guitar
and all that.
Yeah, it sounds like surfboard music, like 1960s surfboarder music. They make it work. It's just that's the really notable. It's a really weird, notable musical choice for a record that like you would think that a producer would stop in and be like, no, fucker. You're going back into the chorus now, so it's kind of funny that song is kind of non-traditional when this is supposed to be a record that's full of hits or whatever. And And yeah, like I like those songs. And this record, what saves it for me is the lyrics 100%. Like,
well, then again, we know why I didn't like it then, because I never pay attention to the lyrics.
yeah, well, that's, if you're the kind of person that watches a movie with your eyes closed, then that's your problem. But no, this record,
Thanks, buddy.
and there's a song, Soma, and it has one of my favorite lines from a song ever. He goes, "If you can amputate my heart, then I will learn to smile, and then you can replace me with yourself, and I'll become the model citizen. And I'll tell them all that I had this breakthrough surgery where they give you a pill, remove your heart, and replace it with a battery." And it's like, you listen to that, and it's like, that's deep enough as it is, but it's like, with the lyrics, with Schwab like really fucking with the record label with some of this stuff, like none of that is like chartable radio friendly. Like it's one of those like, yeah, it's going to be more mainstream sounding, but damn it, it's going to be a concept album.
Didn't lose you, did we, Dustin?
Nope, I'm here. I was finishing pouring my beer.
Cool.
That's a good
And what are
idea.
you
Geoff,
pouring?
refill me.
I'm currently drinking a Triptych Really Dank Meme, which is a nice, like, 8%.
We're going to have to keep that in mind for when we talk about Demon Hunter.
Oh, that's another great band.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is.
We're doing them next year. We got them on the calendar, so
Nice.
we'll give you a call. Unless this has been horrible for you.
Yeah.
No, I'm good. I'm good.
Cool.
All right.
So who wants to tell Joe the story of Songs to Burn Your Bridges by?
Well, Dustin's the resident expert here, so I'm going to hand it off to him.
Jeez. Well, what I know is they're not on a major label anymore. They're back on Tooth and Nail Records, where they, kind of got their start. BEC was supposed to be like the more Christian offshoot of Tooth and Nail. But, this was their return to the indies. And, in my opinion, I think it's a good album. Does it compare to the two before? Not in my opinion. It's got some heavier tracks. They made a very creative music video for, was it Spy Hunter, where they pretty much kill Schwab?
They shoot him with a cannon in the chest, yeah.
Yeah, and it turns into the album artwork.
I remember hearing the EP first, which was an independent release, and Project 86 was written out. Project 86, all letters. And Dan was playing me the Spy Hunter, the Great Golden Gate Disaster, and I think it was Oblivion, and talking about how the band dropped their label and how they were back to being independent, and they basically did this recording in a couple days in some studio, some guy's basement somewhere, or whatever the word was.
I can kind of tell if that's... this is all new information for me, but I can believe it.
Well, if you have that release, which I do, you can tell it was done very quickly and almost in spite of the fact that Truthless Heroes was a thing. But then 2 days later, he shows back up with a record with a guy holding a knife behind his back with a hole in his chest. It says this is the full-length release, and they're back on Tooth and Nail.
It was a little bit longer than that later, but...
well, that was how long it took for you to show it to me.
Okay, so I guess I'm the only one that happened to randomly sign into their website a long time ago, right after the Atlantic split. This is after Truthless had been out for a little while, and there's this really mysterious... so one day Project86.com just disappears. It's just gone. I'm like, what the fuck? So then... one day I sign in again, and it's like, hey guys, we got our website back finally. We're tired of being slaves, and we've decided to pave our own way or something like that. And then all of a sudden it's like, hey, you can buy our newest album, Songs to Burn Your Bridges by here, and it was an independent release. And I did not buy that because I just didn't for some reason. I must not have had the money or something like that. Because I was still a huge fan, but I remember thinking, well, shit, Truthless Heroes hasn't been out that long. I usually expect about 2 years between records.
Right.
And so I was like, this is weird. And so whenever they did sign to Tooth and Nail after that, I definitely bought that one because it had more tracks and it had cooler cover artwork. And from what I understand, the sound production was beefed up quite a bit from the original recordings.
Everything that was recorded previously is either remixed or additions were made to it. There's a couple where they either used alternate vocal takes or he redid the vocals.
Yeah, it's fixed.
As an engineer, I love listening to shit like that because it's like, oh, you took that out, did you? That was one of my favorite things.
This record is basically like Truthless Heroes beefed up a little bit. It's not full on drawing black lines. It's definitely not a return to that sound. And it's weird because the band had such a defiant attitude about all this. I mean, they released The Spy Hunter. Obviously, that's a pissed off at corporation song. Mm-hmm. You know, the whole record kind of permeates that theme of like big companies suck and, you know, God damn it, we're the best and all this shit.
It lives up to its album title,
Absolutely.
Songs to Burn Your Bridges By.
Absolutely.
And Safe Haven, like maybe that's talking about the indie labels.
Right.
Being their safe haven.
Absolutely. And so it's like that. But the weird thing about that record is that for all its pissed offedness, we copyrighted that word on a previous podcast. And for all of its pissed offedness, it's not really that different from Truthless Heroes. Nope.
See, I think Project 86 is a band that they leave hints to what they did before, and they leave hints to what they're going to do next. And maybe it was just the fact that this came out after Truthless Heroes, and now especially talking to Andrew, knowing that The Spy Hunter was written during the Truthless Heroes writing process, you get these little tidbits of, okay, this could have been on Drawing Black Lines, or this could have been the opening to Drawing Black Lines 2. But then you get Safe Haven, you get Say Goodnight to the Bad Guy, and I like those songs. I love Breakdown in 3/4. I love almost every song on here until you get to the last 4 tracks, with the exception of Text Message to the So-Called Emperor.
Oh, see, that we differ here. Because I'm kind of like half and half on this album. But 3 Card, track number 11, I totally dig, because that's a punk song.
Yeah, pure punk rock.
And that's my bread and butter. So all of a sudden, they're throwing up a punk track. And that came out of left field because they've never really done that. They've stuck with like the hardcore. So I dug that. And then I also like A Fruitless End Ever. Not Endeavor, End Ever. But yeah, those are two of my favorite tracks on the record. Most of the other ones are towards the front of the album. But yeah, you can tell one of them's a leftover because it says Truthless Heroes like in the lyric.
That was The Spy Hunter.
Well,
Yeah.
and it's funny now because when it's used in the context of Songs to Burn Your Bridges By, it sounds like a slam on Truthless Heroes.
Like, we don't need that record. We have this one.
We don't need no Truthless Heroes. You know, so like it's interesting that it's, you know, maybe it wasn't originally written that way, but that's the way it comes across.
Into it.
It's very intentional placement for this record. But no, what I love about this record the most is, oh my God, Randy Torres, all over it.
I love the guitar work. I love the vocals where they're used.
He sings a lot on this record, and it just sounds fresh. I think he sounds as good as he sounded on Drawing Black Lines. Randy did. Schwab, though, is a little bit more subdued on this one. I mean, he's aggressive. He yells. He barks. He does all that stuff, but like, it never reaches that level of aggression like it did on Drawing Black Lines. I don't think ever again in their career.
He became, and I mentioned it earlier, the sole vocalist who sings and yells and raps and screams and all the stuff that Schwab does because he's awesome. There's a couple spots later on where Picket Fence Cartel, for example, and even the newest record, I feel like he kind of got back to it. But that's the difference between 2000 and 2017. Was Drawing Black Lines their heaviest release, or at least his most aggressive vocal performance? Probably the most aggressive on record.
I just like I really like the lyrics on this one a lot too. This is actually the first Project 86 album that I've listened to that I was like, yeah, this is a Christian rock album. Because the lyrics, despite being ultra negative towards the record label and everything, are still kind of come across as a little bit more positive. There's like more references from the Bible and stuff in the songs, and there's a lot of like simile and stuff. And it's not like that's why I listen to music, or at least not anymore. You know, when I was a kid, you know, and I was only allowed to listen to Christian music, you know, that stuff was obviously really important. But, you know, listening to it now, it's just interesting how they kind of found a little bit of their own solace. And, you know, they kind of started coming into more of what they would become, you know, as a staple of, because I kind of think really after the whole Truthless Heroes thing, they kind of just stayed in the Christian market.
Do you still have bad memories of Oblivion, Dan?
All right, true story. So I'm driving. Okay,
you mean two true stories.
My
right?
parents went out of town one time, and I guess this is right after I got out of high school, so it was like my first year of college, and I was supposed to go to class that night, but I didn't. I decided to go see my girlfriend instead, and instead of taking my car, I took my mom's car. And it was raining outside, and I was listening to Songs to Burn Your Bridges by, and I was listening to the song Oblivion when, you know, a car in front of me stopped suddenly. I was going too fast. I slammed the brakes on, and I like went off the road into the trees and flipped that fucking car 2 times.
Yikes.
And it's so funny because
the bridge was getting ready to begin.
I remember, yeah, it was during the bridge of the song. So like while it's flipping that, like that's in the car, like that should have been a music video, you know, like, and no, I remember sitting upside down in the car, like right after it happened, and the fucking CD's still playing. And
he finished the track.
Yeah, I'm like trying to get my seatbelt off, and Andrew's yelling, "Let go the anchor! Let go the dead weight!" It's like so funny. So that record was really, and I remember too because like whenever it was miraculously unharmed, completely. I had no injury whatsoever, like no scratch, and the car unfortunately didn't make it, but. It wasn't my car. It was my mom's car. So I remember whenever the car got impounded, I remember like my dad's telling me about all the damage and how the car's completely totaled and they're going to buy my mom a new car, but he fully expects me to make the down payment. And all of which is extremely fair. I realize now that I'm a dad. But I remember being like, yeah, but that CD that was in the CD player, you guys got that out, right? Because that
I knew that's where that was going.
Well, my copy of it was signed by Andrew, and so I wanted that CD back, you know, really bad, and because I had just seen them about 2 weeks prior with Haste the Day, and so that was like a really good vibe, and I just remember that was the only fucking thing I cared about was like, oh, is that CD okay? Because if it's not, I don't know what I'm going to do. I probably would have like broke down and started crying.
Yeah, I can't top that.
So how much more do we have to go before we end the first era of Project 86?
Oh, we got a little ways to go, man.
Really?
Honestly, these next few albums aren't going to get nearly as much dialogue out of me. As I said, with this album, this is when I started to... I don't know, maybe lose a little bit of interest in what Project 86 was doing. I don't know if it was just me getting older, my musical taste changing a little bit, or just what they were doing wasn't speaking to me as much. They brought me back in a little bit down the road, but yeah, I didn't really dig the next album.
I really want to love And the Rest Will Follow. 2005, if only for the fact that the first song, Sincerely Ichabod, it's almost a conscious effort to say to the fans, We know you miss us. We're still here. When your opening line is, we once drew some lines in black and now it's time we take them back. But every other song on the record is not as heavy.
Yeah.
I
That
don't
song
know.
was so awesome. I remember being so amped up for the shit, hearing that. And, then you go to the next track, which I think is that Doomsday Stomp?
Well, you got All of Me,
isn't it?
All of
Doomsday
Me,
Stomp.
Doomsday Stomp, Something We Can't Be. Those songs are all boring as shit. And to throw them right after Sincerely, basically you're throwing out the best track you've come up with since Drawing Black Lines. And now all of a sudden, boring shit.
I think these are the slowest songs the band ever wrote.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is by far the standout track on this album, and it's not even close for me. But I'm also kind of a obnoxious metalhead, so I guess that kind of makes sense.
I like Sincerely Ichabod. I like From December. I like Cavity King.
That's one of my favorites.
My Will Be a Dead Man. It's a
and
good
that's
song.
a slow single too. That's another very low, slow tempo. And this was their reunion with Garth, or
Yes.
Garth. And
Yeah.
if you came in expecting Drawing Black Lines Part 2, you were sadly disappointed. And I'll be honest, I bought this one, played it a couple times the first month I got it, and then it went on the shelf. I probably didn't touch it for a couple years.
I think this record has a really weak beginning section, first half. If it was an LP, side one's weak.
Yeah.
You've got Sincerely Ichabod, which is carrying the whole thing over. However, you flip it over to side 2 and you get to Subject to Change. And then you have a super badass song that's heavy and in your face. Your fate's still undecided. Return. I mean, that song fucks you, man. It's
aggressively?
It's really
or sweetly?
aggressive. No, it's definitely aggressive.
No lube.
Yeah,
Zero lube.
Right in.
Dustin, he took a page right out of my book.
Yeah,
man.
it's a bite the.
I think you stole your gimmick, Geoff.
It's a bite the pillow moment for sure.
Oh man.
But it's great, and but then right after that they go into probably, okay guys, landmark moment. My favorite Project 86 song of all time
What?
is on this record.
Seriously?
Necktie Remedy.
Oh, that's all right.
That is my favorite song by Project 86. And let's get sappy for a second, shall we? That song has a very, very personal message for me.
What car did you wreck to this song?
No, I did not wreck a song. I did not wreck a song to this car. Shit, I'm drunk already.
We're already gonna talk. We're definitely gonna talk about lyrics though, if it's something sappy and damn.
Okay, so I used to work at a bank. I worked, and it's weird too because the song had literally no impact on me when it came out. In 2010, I took a job at a bank as a part-time bank teller, and I got steadily promoted. I went from part-time to full-time, and then I went to a hoity-toity part of town. I went up to Ladue and became a personal banker. And
That's like the Beverly Hills of St. Louis.
I was building a career in banking. I was wearing suits every day to work, and money was pretty good.
Yeah, I saw some of that money in some of those suits.
Yeah, Geoff used to work at a. We'll get into that later. But yeah, Geoff used to work at a video game store that I used to just drop mad cash at.
Yeah, he was my best customer, man.
And so I did that job from, I guess, for about 4 years, which is a long time for a young person. And I was a manager. And once I got into management, I got kind of more exposed to the weird, just how greedy people could be, executives could be, and getting to see that firsthand. I would work my ass off and get rack up all these bonuses, and then they wouldn't pay my bonuses out, and they give me some bullshit excuse as to why, and all that. And I put up with tons and tons of it. Well, then I guess eventually I started getting too outspoken and too aggressive with them and I ended up getting canned very unceremoniously, and it started a really, really dark period in my life. And this song, like, really helped me get through that part of my life. Just the whole Necktie Remedy, because as far as I know, Necktie Remedy, I think what's being hinted at here, and this is my own personal interpretation, but I think when he says a swing from a Necktie Remedy, that's a pretty self-explanatory. I mean, I think he's talking about like a noose, and he talks about how like businesses take people in and promise them richness and fame and wealth and all this shit. And then it just kind of it just dissolves into nothing, and how you're focused so much on getting into the inner circle, and being part of this big thing, and how everybody that's involved in it is just miserable. I don't know. Maybe this is just something that only rings with me, but this song just really, really, it reminds me of that period of my life. And how I fought as hard as I could after that to get away from that.
Oh, you succeeded.
Yeah.
You took my spot. It all works out.
Right, yeah. Yeah, I started working at the game store that Geoff worked at.
And now I work at a bank.
Yeah. Good luck, buddy. No,
thanks, dude.
Dude, that's why you got those 3 podcasts. That's going to carry you.
Yeah, exactly.
When it's all said and done, we hope 5 years from now that's all that you're doing is podcasting.
He's not going to swing from a Necktie Remedy. Yeah.
No, I feel you on that. I've had close attempts at suicide and successful attempts at suicide in my family, so it's a pretty sobering story.
Yeah, it was rough, man.
And as bad as it sounds, you're truthfully hitting on why I don't listen to lyrics and why I stick my head in the sand. Is because I don't want to hear that shit. I know.
I'm like, oh, I'm not alone.
I don't want to, but I guess that's the reason why for the exact same reason why I don't want to hear it is I don't want to relate to it. I don't want to admit those weaknesses. I mean, and I guess that's the athlete machismo bullshit side of me that starts finding its way to the surface.
Geoff wants to be a sociopath, not an empath.
Got it.
Yeah, we have a winner.
Got it.
Hey, that's what.
Well, I think we've made great progress with you today, Geoff. Come back this time next week. Take a couple of these pills, and we'll get it good. And
I talking about having a couple of those pills. I just had my first sip of Steel Reserve. What the fuck is that shit?
It's delicious, is what it is.
It's fucking disgusting.
Have you ever shit into a can, Geoff?
Dude, I smelled
and then fermented that shit.
It's like It's like rubbing alcohol as beer. It's god awful. This is going to be my last can of Steel Reserve.
There's no,
but you're still drinking it.
I'm going to drink it because there's no way in hell I'm going to let alcohol go to waste.
So you're an alcoholic, is what you're saying, not a beer connoisseur.
Dustin,
sure.
We're so sorry, man. We are not.
It's all right.
We there's no format to this. You know what really cheered me up after that?
Rival Factions?
Rival Factions.
Yeah, actually,
2007.
I kind of dug this. This is kind of fun, actually. And
this is almost beats out Truthless Heroes for me. This was the one that I bought it just because I'm a completist and a band that I listen to. If they put out something new, I'm gonna pick it up. But I went into it with very low expectations after the last record, and I put it on, and I was like, okay, all right, I like the first track, and then it just kept going, and it was solid. Like, this is the only album where I'm good listening to the whole thing without skipping a single track.
Yeah, and it's only like, 30 minutes long? It's not.
Yeah, it's super tight, 10 tracks. And,
it's a good rock album.
Yeah, it's great.
In my opinion, this is era 2. Start.
Yeah, Alex is gone. This is the first record without him.
Yeah, I think Randy's still on and Steven's still in, and obviously,
the
obviously
artwork,
Andrew.
Yeah.
Just shows the three of them, and the artwork is super cool. Like the CD jewel case is like this purple color, and it's like a decoder ring, because if you take the liner notes out of the tray, there's like this weird kind of 3D looking print, and you have to put it under this plastic to be able to read the track listing, and there's different things hidden. It's pretty cool, and that just added to it. Also, they worked with Jason Martin on this record, and you can tell. Starflyer 59 is one of my favorites. I got to interview Jason on Drunken Lullabies, and I was super stoked about that. But tracks like Illuminate, he's the one playing the keyboards on there, and you can totally hear him all over this record.
Yeah, I agree. I'm a big Starflyer fan, and I definitely hear that.
Yeah, that's actually something that I did listen to quite a bit. I had one of my best friends in high school was a big Starflyer fan, so
yeah, it's this record's just fucking weird for Project 86. Like
it's a straight up rock album.
It's like these weird up tempo shit. Like everything else that they ever did was either like they only had two tricks up their sleeves before. It was either we beat you over the head with a tire iron, or we depress you enough till you kill yourself. You know, like there wasn't.
Which Dan likes.
Which I love, yeah. And but no, this was weird. And honestly, like the first time I heard this, I was like, "Fuck this band!" You know, like it was. But I mean, at that point, I was a meathead, you know, with heavy music, and I was like, "They're not even heavy anymore, and that's not cool because reasons." And you know. So I wasn't into it, but like when I would go back and listen to it, like the song that really got me was Normandy. That was a fucking great song, Normandy, and I also really loved Caveman Jam, which is just one of the weirdest vocal patterns that Schwab's ever done, and the lyrics are just absurd. Like he's just
I agree.
Yeah. You caught me on my way to destroy stages. It's like, what the fuck? But it's so great.
It's interesting to me because what I hear is somebody was listening to Heart-Shaped Glasses by Marilyn Manson and said, I could do a glam rock record. And then they remembered their Project 86, so it turned into an electronic pop record. I love it, though.
The forces of radio have dropped a pit viper. What the fuck is that?
Put your lips to the TV.
Yeah. Well, what's weird, too, is like Schwab does some of his hardest screaming on that song. The forces of radio have dropped a pit viper. Like, he's like, it almost hurts listening to him scream it. It sounds like it's hurting him. And I thought that was really interesting about this record. But
hemorrhoids.
Yeah. I'm going to totally derail this for a second.
While you do that, I'm taking the dog outside.
Fuck you.
Dude, all right, while we're doing that,
all right, I guess we're in recess right now.
It's god awful.
What is?
Steel Reserve is like the worst thing I've ever put in my mouth.
Really? The worst thing?
Dustin, all right, what's the worst alcoholic beverage you've ever had?
Recently in Michigan. No, not Michigan. That was a different trip. We were in Minnesota, and we went to this club, and there was a beer list. And I was just looking for something new, and there was a gluten-free beer that the name of it was just Greek symbols, but it was like a pun when you put them together. I can't remember exactly what it was, but I thought it was kind of clever, so I ordered it, and it was a horrible mistake because it was just horrible. And I took my first sip, and my girlfriend could tell I was not enjoying it. And it was like $7 for a can, and I didn't like it on the first sip, and it was a tall can.
Oh.
So I was like, well, maybe I'll just try to chug it and power through because I don't want to waste it. And so I started doing that, and I had to stop about halfway through because I started dry heaving.
Oh, my God.
It was that bad that I couldn't even chug it. And it made me physically ill for a little while. Like I had to go to the bathroom and kind of like settle. And then I came back in and I was like, I'm sorry, but I can't finish this. And we got something else. But yeah, that was probably the worst one I've had in a while.
Oh, that sounds horrible, man.
So if you see any beer that's gluten-free with Greek letters as the name, that's probably it. Don't drink it.
Okay, I got you. Yeah, there's the place I was at for my high school reunion before I came here in January, so just in a few weeks. They're one of the beers they're getting ready to introduce, because they're getting ready to open up the brewery, is a gluten-free beer. And you've just kind of completely turned me off of trying any gluten-free beer, because I don't want to go through that. I don't want to have to spend $7 on a tall boy and fucking hate it.
So here's the thing about gluten-free. It's bullshit. All the people that decided last year that they have gluten intolerances, you're fucking faking it. If you don't go to the fucking doctor and figure out that you actually have a gluten intolerance, you're full of shit.
I mean,
there was no reason for you to avoid gluten.
Controversial opinions.
The gluten-free thing is the straight-up hipster thing, unless you, I mean, because the percentage of people that actually have a gluten intolerance is fairly small. I mean, there's plenty of people out there that do have a gluten intolerance. I mean, when you look at the entire population of the world, I mean, that means millions of people.
I want to see documentation.
No.
I stopped eating bread for a week and I feel better about myself. Does not count.
That's because you're eating...
I've never stopped eating bread. Look what happened to me.
That's called processed flour. I mean, anybody...
All flour is processed to an extent, Jeffrey.
Right, and you guys are giving me shit about derailing the conversation.
Yeah, if we want to talk about things to avoid, for me, unfortunately, it's the next album, which is Picket Fence Cartel.
Oh!
Fuck yeah, there you go.
I am...
Hot take.
I'm in the minority. I actually dug this one.
Following Rival Factions, which is, one of my favorites, this was another big, huge disappointment. It's the end of the rest of the original lineup. Randy and Steven, this was their final record. And unfortunately, it's not a good one to leave on, in my opinion. But maybe that's why they left.
I like the songs. I like the atmosphere. Jeffrey.
Oh, that's my word, atmosphere. Well, I mean, there's a lot of electronic...
Asshole sphere.
Yeah, there's plenty of layers. There's plenty of electronic elements in this. I'm a heavy-duty industrial guy, so that probably is part of the reason why I do like this one. They're borrowing quite a few of those elements in this album.
It is a gigantic put off that the drums on this record are fake. They are not being played by a human being.
Are you sure about that, Joe? You always say that, but I don't know if you know that for sure.
I can guarantee it for sure. The drums that you hear were not played by a human being.
That's Joe, the drummer, speaking, and I'm not a drummer, so I don't give a shit.
Don't misunderstand me, Jeff. I love the record. I love the songs, but when I listen to the record, I have the Scott Mellinger response to the self-titled Zao.
Mellinger,
I don't want to hear the fake drums, and I know they're fake because there is no variation in the tones.
I fucking love Destroyer, man. Like, that's actually the first... maybe that's part of it. That's the first Project 86 song I heard was Destroyer. And I dug it. I mean, it had a bit of a...
You should hear it live with a real drummer. It's better.
He kind of... I mean, he even has like
we saw them tour on this.
That croaky, dry, cracked Marilyn Manson speak that he does on Destroyer. I actually like that on the... I don't know what it is, but it kind of speaks to me. But I know I'm sure I'm in the minority, but I love industrial, so that kind of sound is what I grew up on, and so hearing that just kind of comforts me a bit.
Now that you mentioned Marilyn Manson, this song would be so much more interesting with a bunch of going on. I would dig the fuck out of that, actually.
I think that they were trying to give the drawing black lines treatment to the Rival Factions sound. They're like, okay, so we had electronic elements on Rival Factions, and Rival Factions was probably one of their better albums, in the sense that unlike their other stuff, Look at everything Drawing Black Lines on. You kind of had to be a Project 86 fan already to pick those records up, right?
Absolutely.
Like how many new fans do you think that they got off of Songs to Burn and and the rest will follow? But an album like Rival Factions, they may have actually gained new fans with that.
Yeah, Spotify, their number one song is, Evil, A Chorus of Resistance. That's their most played song.
Right, because that's an earworm. If you hear that on the radio, you're not going to get that out of your head for days. Unfortunately, Picket Fence Cartel doesn't have a song like that. Well, that's not true. It does have The Butcher, which is...
The Butcher, Destroyer,
The
Spectrum
Butcher
of
and
Fearsome
Destroyer.
Acts.
I like them both.
That's one of the only songs that I really like.
The Butcher was pretty badass.
Cement Shoes.
But this record doesn't have a lot of hits. It's I think it repeats itself a little too much in places. Destroyer, I love the beginning of Destroyer. Like, I like the first 38 to 39 seconds of Destroyer, but then it's like, okay, guys, come on, let's fucking start the song. Like, how long is this going to go on before you guys actually get into it?
I guess I kind of like the fact that it drones on. I don't know.
I was a little upset that this was the last time we heard Randy Torres on a record. And
we don't really hear him. We just hear his guitar. At this point, Schwab has completely taken over the vocal section, and it was that way on Rival Factions as well.
Mainly, Randy was doing production work at this point.
The last time we heard Randy was on there, and the rest will follow. I always felt like everything on... And, like, I love Rival Factions, and maybe it didn't need Randy, but this record probably could have benefited from it. And I just... I've felt like since then there's always been something missing from the band's sound, because again, I'm totally sold out on those first 4 or 5 records, and so to me, it's like those first 4 or 5 records, Era 1, as Joe calls it, really was the band, and everything like Rival Factions on is like Andrew trying to keep it all together.
I agree 95%. What we got after Rival Factions was not the same band. In some ways, it was more entertaining, but Rival Factions on its own, like Geoff said, great record. Like Dan said, new fans. It was actually a step in a different direction. I think everything from Songs to Burn Your Bridges By to And the Rest Will Follow was trying to hold on to whatever they had with Drawing Black Lines and Truthless Heroes combined. That we want to be heavy, but then we also want to be melodic. Whereas this was a step in the direction of we want to be heavy, but we also have those melodic elements that are left over from Truthless Heroes and Songs to Burn Your Bridges By, which I still find interesting. That in the book, he mentioned the production process of Truthless Heroes being so frustrating, and I just find it interesting that we're still doing the melodic thing if we had such a negative reaction to it initially.
I don't know. I just don't think that Andrew's capable of putting out something like the early records all by himself. But I do want to throw out special mention to the song The Black Brigade off of Picket Fence Cartel. For whatever reason, that song, that riff, sounds so Project 86 to me.
That's the only other song on that I like, aside from The Butcher.
Yeah, for some reason...
You don't even like Destroyer?
Nope, I only have tracks 2 and 10 on my list for this one.
For some reason, that opening riff for The Black Brigade is the most generically Project 86 riff that could exist. And I love it because of that. I love it because of the nostalgia of that. And that's the last time we're going to ever hear that, folks.
I don't know, dude.
No, that's over.
Wait until the new record.
No.
We'll get to it. Don't worry. We'll get to it.
Wait for the siren?
Well, speaking of Wait for the Siren, what happened from 2009 to 2012, Dan? Because there was a period of time where Project 86 was either dead or wasn't making new records.
They were never dead. Basically, the band was never dead. I mean, they were still touring and releasing shit. But, there's a reason why we're talking about these guys in December, right?
Is it time to talk about the EP?
Let's talk about...
we're breaking our own rule, and we're talking about an EP on a discography discussion.
So in 2008, and I thought this was a fucking joke at first.
I did too.
So, yeah, Project 86 put out a Christmas EP.
And it was really demented and really sick. And where was this when they were making Picket Fence Cartel?
Half of these songs could have benefited on being on that record.
Absolutely.
Well, I'll tell you what, I didn't break the rule because I didn't listen to this.
You're missing out, sir. This might be some of the most industrial music they've ever made.
Yep.
Dustin, did you listen to this?
Yeah, I'm a huge fan of Christmas music. I have a Spotify playlist of Christmas music that is thousands upon thousands of songs, and this is definitely in there. And I mean, like, they do Mr. Grinch, which they do a solid original take on it. This Time of Year, I thought was a really solid song, and Rot On, This Holidays Eve, those are all fantastic songs in my opinion.
Geoff's getting his first taste of Misfit Toys as we speak, and he's regretting not listening to this.
It sounds like he listened to a shit ton of Marilyn Manson.
Yeah, kind of.
And was like, how do I do this but like with holiday cheer? What? How do I incorporate the baby Jesus into this? And goddamn, I mean, this was awesome. And it's weird too because like this was hard to get. You had to like, you had a very limited window of time. This is before Spotify, slightly before Spotify. So like, you really had to like dig deep. Like if you didn't get this when it was first released, you essentially had to like go on eBay and find it.
The original EP had 5 songs. And then there was a couple singles that were released here and there. Like Project 86, I remember the Cane Mutiny EP. I remember This Time of Year EP. And then all of a sudden in 2015, and we're skipping a couple years, but all of a sudden in 2018, there was an 8-song release that took all their Christmas music that they had made and shoved it all together into one.
Yeah, so they kind of combined all this shit together, right, and made a full-length album. And by full-length, I mean, like, what, 26 minutes?
Yeah.
I mean, it's the best damn Christmas album I've heard in a long time.
I disagree, but...
August Burns Red?
We'll get to them next year.
Yeah, I was going to say, that's my Christmas album.
I like me some Nightmare Before Christmas.
So yeah, this is some really creepy shit. Like, and it's weird because it kind of instills that same feeling in me that Drawing Black Lines did back in the day. Not that they sound anything alike, but just this idea of like, this is a Christian band coming up with this stuff. But as we all know, at this point, this is the Andrew Schwab show. This is whatever he thinks is a good idea.
This is the bridge between Era 2 and Era 3, if I'm
Holy shit, there's 3 eras?
I think so. There's the first era, which stopped it, and the rest will follow. There's the 2 records in the middle, where we didn't have the same drummer. We didn't have the same input from the band, or at least the same sound. And it led us to the third, which is just Andrew Schwab and Friends, which we will get into when we discuss Wait for the Siren, their first crowd-funded endeavor. I
helped crowdfund it.
I helped crowdfund it as well.
I've helped crowdfund every album since then.
We were at the CD release party here in St. Louis.
Yeah, me and you and Andrew. There was nobody at that show.
Out of the 3 bloody lips I've had at metal shows, 2 of them were Andrew Schwab's fault. Thank you, sir.
Well, and I remember that, like, they've never had a good pull in St. Louis because St. Louis doesn't like good bands. It's just the way it is.
Hey, man, we like the Urge and Breaking Benjamin.
Yeah, okay, fucker. Hey, guys, when's Deftones coming back? With Guns N' Roses, right? Anyway.
Deftones is good, though.
Yeah, Guns N' Roses is good, too. Or was. So, yeah, we went to the CD release party, and I remember there's a song on this record called SOTS, S-O-T-S, and I remember they played it live, and Andrew's like, does anybody know what SOTS stands for? And I think I yelled out, because again, it was like me and Joe and like 6 other people. And I was like, Song of the South? In which case, Andrew was like, yes, that's exactly it. Very sarcastically. And I almost brought that up whenever we had him on our podcast, but I was like, I don't want to bring that shit up.
I like the songs on here, but they don't sound like Project 86 as much as they sound like Andrew Schwab and Friends. Rocky Gray's playing drums. Brian Head Welch makes an appearance. I mean...
What about Bruce?
Bruce is on here as well.
Bruce Fitzhugh from Living Sacrifice.
You know that man so well. I like the songs, but they sound to me like songs that you would write with a supergroup. I mean, there's a band called Tin Machine that David Bowie is the lead singer of. Mm-hmm. I feel like this would be something to that extent. If this was anything other than Project 86, it would be a little more appealing, because just as a Project 86 record, I don't hear anything familiar. And as a fan, that's what I'm listening for. And even with Picket Fence Cartel and Rival Factions, it was different, but I still heard familiarity. There's elements of familiarity, but they don't sound like the same band. It just sounds like Andrew Schwab's hanging out with a bunch of people.
This is, again, part of the time where I kind of was on radio silence. I own the album. There's only a few songs that I really like Fall Goliath Fall. It's okay. They have a video for it. It was the lead single, but nothing that is going to really hold a candle to the old stuff. Defector's all right. I do like Ghosts of Easter Rising, track 10, but honestly, this is another one where I bought it when it came out, played it a couple times, and on the shelf it's set.
I liked this one for the most part. I liked Fall Goliath Fall. I remember everything seems to always travel back to my work history, but like I was working at the game store, not making any money, and I was upset about that.
I was too. That's why I left.
Yeah, even though I was mentally better than I was leaving the bank, I wanted to make more money. So I remember that was right about when this record came out. What was this, like 2012, Joe?
Yeah,
2012.
Yeah. So that's whenever I started working as a technician.
Oh, that's when you came to my house and installed my cable.
That is when I came to Jeff's house and installed his cable, yes.
And everything I know about technicians, I know from Dan.
Right. So the good and the bad and the ugly. But no, what was interesting is I remember listening to the shit out of Fall Goliath Fall when I was getting my when I was doing my job interviews and stuff. That song just like really pumped me up and made me super confident, overconfident at my job interviews. And so that song holds a special place in my heart. But to be totally honest, I like that song. I like tracks 1 and 2.
And that's it. That's me on this album.
Because track 2 is great because because Bruce Fitzhugh is great.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna always stick around to listen to him scream. Really beyond that, Wait for the Siren was kind of a big miss for me. I feel like it's one of those records that could have benefited from a different track listing order. I just don't think it flows that well, and I think there's just too much shit thrown together.
You mean like there's a bunch of guest appearances?
There's a bunch
that
of
don't
guest
really
appearances that don't really fit.
I thought there was only 2 on this. Is there more than 2?
Oh man, there's it's 3 or 4.
Well, and the guitarist from A Plea for Purging plays guitar on this record.
Oh, okay.
Rocky Gray, who played in Living Sacrifice, Evanescence, in pretty much every band you can name. Rocky Gray's kind of like the guy to call if you need somebody to play drums or guitar on your shit.
Yeah, actually, it's funny. I talked a lot about Rocky at my high school reunion today. That was pretty funny.
It's weird.
Yeah, there's a bunch of... They were like talking about all these Christian podcasts that they're doing, and I'm like, Rocky! They're like, who's that? I'm like, Living Sacrifice. They're like, who's that? I'm like... You should have been like, dude, I do a Christian podcast. To a certain extent I do, except I drop F-bombs all the time.
So this is the first record that features the new Project 86, which is Andrew Schwab, Dustin Lowry, and Scott Davis. No bass player at the time.
Who I don't think is even in the band anymore.
Right? But then your additional musicians, your guest vocalists, you've got Bruce Fitzhugh, you got Brian Headwelch, you got Andrew Welch from Disciple, you got Blake Martin, that's our plea for purging, you got Cody Diggers, Rocky Gray. I don't know who The Wedding is, but I'm guessing that's a band.
Yeah.
Showing up on guest vocals.
Yeah.
I mean, this really was, you're crowdfunding our record and we're going to make it worth your money by having a bunch of people show up and do shit.
I mean, it was definitely a takes a village kind of moment.
The Village didn't put out a good album.
Agreed.
It was
collectively.
It was better than the next one.
So we're moving on to Knives to the Future.
Knives to the Future doesn't even exist for me as an album.
Really?
Yeah, like...
See, I like this one better than the last couple.
It's all right. And I think it's like what you were saying about radio silence. I guess after Wait for the Siren, I just didn't care. Mm-hmm. You know, I was kind of like, oh yeah, you know, like I think the song
apathetic to what they were putting out.
Yeah, and it's weird too because I helped crowdfund it.
Yeah, I've got an autographed copy in my hand right now.
I'm glad I don't because I would have smashed it to bits. But yeah, no, like I just think that this record is very what's the word?
Try hard?
Solid. But like it's so damn solid that like I just don't remember any of it. And this could be my fault. This is the one that I listened to the least.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like I didn't listen to this much, but then when I was doing prep for this episode, you know, I went back, I listened to them all in order, like in a day. And this one, when I put it on, I was like, man, I probably should have given this more attention when it came out, because honestly I think it's got some decent songs on it. It has the only album closer that I love on any Project 86 album. I never felt they've had a strong song to end a record, but Oculus is a solid one to go out on.
No, I agree. Like even Drawing Black Lines, as great of a record as that is, doesn't end that strong.
They need Oculus is a mic drop on the record. Like,
for sure,
we're done. You know, see you in a couple years. And yeah, that was something that I always felt was missing from their albums, was that kick in the teeth on the way out the door.
Right.
They've always kind of slacked in the last 2 or 3 songs, with exception, of course. And
that's sequencing. You know, that's like we said, albums could benefit from a better track listing. So right. I don't know, but he evidently doesn't make good mix CDs for people, because it's all about sequencing.
Right. It's all about sequencing, especially with me, and I know I've been called out for it recently from our good friends at the Roach Coach. I remember when albums made sense, and then there was this time where even pop records, you knew if I used to say you could tell if it's a pop record because the last 3 songs are complete throwaway bullshit. And if it had a good closer, or if it ended on a good note, that means it had good sequencing. And for the most part, I've been correct all these years. Project 86, they're one of the bands that just doesn't know how to close a record.
Yeah.
But that could be that underground or independent, we put our best foot forward because we don't believe someone's going to listen to the whole album anyway. I don't know. But Oculus is a good song on here. I like Pale Rider.
The opening track.
The opening track's pretty good. Spirit of Shiloh, I'm a pretty big fan of that.
So, Dan, since this album doesn't exist for you, are we just going straight to Sheep Among Wolves now?
Pretty much. I wish I had something better to say about it. It's extremely solid. I like it.
What do you want to say about Sheep Among Wolves, Dan?
I just don't love Knives to the Future. So, I'm not going to lie, Sheep Among Wolves came out like, what, 4.5 minutes ago?
Oh, yeah. About 3.5 days.
Yeah, no, well, a couple weeks, but...
So, yeah, it's at least
I don't have it on CD. It's the only one I don't have.
Well, see, I crowdfunded the vinyl. That's not shipping for several more months, which I'm really pissed off about. But that's neither here nor there. I still got access to it before anybody else did, you know?
Right.
So I got that going for me. So... Sheep Amongst Wolves starts pretty aggressively, actually. I was pretty surprised by that. It doesn't hit me like Drawing Black Lines hits me, but it was an interesting choice. It was almost like Schwab was like, I hear what you guys are saying. So I'm going to do this for you. But it doesn't really come off like that. I mean, he's screaming. It's a little chaotic or whatever, but it sounds more like something like Latter Day Under Oath or Norma Jean would do. It doesn't really sound distinctly Project 86. And I don't want to say I don't want to shit on it, because I do like it. You know, obviously I do prefer to hear Schwab scream than sing. But this record is just really all over the place, man.
I'm too close to it right now. It's too new that I don't really have an opinion. It's got some decent songs like MHS, which I'm trying to think of an inappropriate definition for that
My Hairy
acronym.
Scrotum.
Oh,
Yep,
that's a good one.
All right, cool.
So they put out a lyric video for it, and that's, it's pretty heavy. There are a couple grammar errors, I think, in the lyric video, which bugged me. But, Imaginary Me is all right. But again, it's one of those, I'm going to have to go back and give it more attention later down the road to see what I really think
odds
of it.
are we're going to come back to this in like a mini episode or something in the future, because it's just too new. And
yeah, it's great they're still putting out music.
My review of this record in 2017 is there are aspects of this record that remind me of every Project 86 record that came previous. Even the opening track reminds me of the self-titled Project 86. Yes, Andrew is singing, but I only hear the guitar, the bass, and the drums, and Andrew. One of the best listens I have is 15 Live, which is a live record they did after, I think it was Picket Fence Cartel, Dan, correct me if I'm wrong.
yes.
And all it was the guitar, the bass, the drums, and Andrew. So you're hearing a very pure representation of the band, which is important to a lot of people. I don't want to call this album stripped down because it's not fully stripped down, but some of the songs are just the band, and other songs are the electronic elaborations that happened later on. So I really feel like the first few times I've listened to it, I'm hearing a little bit of everything Project has ever done.
Yeah, I think I'd put this as I fling poo. I just want to see what sticks. That's my perception of it. This is an album that is made for the modern masses, that, putting songs into a playlist or putting stuff on shuffle is perfectly fine. I guess I'm a traditionalist, and I like to listen stuff cover to cover, and I want a cohesiveness to it when I'm listening to it. And maybe that's what we kind of hit out on earlier. Track listing seems to be a challenge for Project 86. And maybe that's why I'm, other than a couple exceptions, have a hard time digesting their music. Is when I listen to something, I'm one of those guys that I want to start at the beginning and go all the way to the end. And there's always something that makes me not want that to happen on multiple Project 86 albums, because either A, it doesn't finish well, or the track listing is a little screwed up. And that just it kind of leaves a sour taste in my mouth. I'm an album listener. I'm old school in that way, and I will always be that way. And
I'm the same way.
And I think that's probably why on certain albums I do have struggles listening to Project 86, and it's simply because of that. I want to start at track 1 and go all the way to track 15 or whatever it might be, and never have to hit skip. And I don't feel like I can always do that with their stuff.
Listen to 15 Live, you'll be surprised. We are at the end, so
did we make it? We survived.
We made it.
We
Dan
did.
survived.
I know I had some issues, but
Barely.
yeah.
The table didn't make it.
No,
No, it's back.
It's
Oh,
going
is
to
it?
the
From
trash
the dead.
anyway,
I
guys.
beat it at a submission. I just owed Joe a table. That's not a tall order.
It's going to go in the trash tomorrow anyway, dude, so it's okay.
It was like Chris Farley as Matt Foley, just going right through that table.
Oh shit, I know.
Mankind.
No, not Mick Foley, Matt Foley. He lives in a van down by the river.
I know.
Living on a steady diet of government cheese.
I'm having a little fun.
Thank you for that, Dustin,
I'm sorry.
by the way.
I can't see you. You were winking at me.
Oh, okay.
He could send you some seductive pictures on Facebook Messenger on his own time.
That's right.
I'm going to lead with Dustin and say, final thoughts on Project 86.
Great band. I have many happy, pleasant memories of shows and those early albums. Again, like I said, it's great they're still putting out music. I'm still keeping up with them, which, I think that's what a lot of people do that really have a strong tie to a band. So they've got that support. They're doing the crowdfunding thing. It seems to be working. Hope Andrew keeps putting out music. Like I said, you don't have to like everything that these people put out, as long as there's a few things that just keep you coming back. And so far I haven't given up. So I appreciate you guys having me on to talk about some P86 tonight.
Geoff, what about you?
For me, it's all about Mr. Schwab's voice. Dude, that's what keeps me listening. I mean, it pretty well established. I'm not the biggest fan. I mean, because I've had 2.5 weeks of listening to this. But, dude, he's got some pipes. And I'd like to hear... I like to hear him go straight up hardcore. I would love to hear that.
Drawing Black Lines.
Like, even more so.
Okay.
Yeah, but there's a reason why Drawing Black Lines is in my top 2, and that's exactly why. So yeah, I want to hear them get back to the harder, edgier sound, and make an entire album of it. Dan, what about you?
I feel like everything from Project 86 self-titled all the way up to And the Rest Will Follow is the band. Like a band of people that contribute ideas together and have a collective sound that's created from multiple band practices and writing sessions and whatever you want to call it. Everything else is good for the most part. Few misses. But that's okay. The more albums you have, you can have a few misses and it's okay. But I think that original band, like first 5 albums, that's where I'm at. And that's where I'm going to live for a while with this band. But obviously, despite that, I still crowdfund every new album. I'm still very involved. And so it's one of those, like, being a fan, I'm going to always like everything that they do, even if I don't love everything that they do.
I'm a fan of Project 86. I have been for many years. I want to love everything they do, but I find myself loving 3 records, and the rest is their greatest hits. And that's okay sometimes. If I'm listening to Project 86, I'm probably not going to listen to the newest releases in their entirety. But if I was a fan of other bands, I'd be going to see them live just to hear them play their greatest hits. So I feel like it's okay that I only like the greatest hits of Project 86, but I'm glad that Project 86 is still around, if only for the reason that it is the label Andrew Schwab uses for his music. For that reason, it's worth listening to even today. And I'm looking forward to digesting the newest release as much as I have the others. Dustin, what is your album of the week?
What I've been listening to a lot lately, it's the end of the year, so I go crazy on doing my top 25 albums of the year and my favorite singles and all this kind of stuff, and I make all these playlists. But I've been listening to my top albums of the year a lot this week, aside from Project 86. And I mean, I could give you a whole rundown, but I'll just stick with one record that I've been playing a lot that maybe your listeners may enjoy a bit. But it's another old band, old favorite that had my favorite release of the year, and it was Afghan Wigs. They put out an album called In Spades. They're on Sub Pop Records now. Saw them live at the Metro in Chicago a few months ago, and it's just a really solid album from top to bottom. They've put out 2 records since they reformed, and they have not lost a step at all. And I got to feature them on Drunken Lullabies as a band of the week and play some songs, and that was awesome for me to be able to feature them on the show with their permission.
That's awesome.
Very cool.
Yeah, Afghan Wigs, In Spades, album of the year for me.
Nice.
Dan, what about you?
Well, not going to lie, I've just kind of fallen back on old favorites. So my album of the week has been Language by The Contortionist.
Oh, dude.
Geoff?
Oh.
Did Dan just steal your bit?
No, but Language is... I'm just like Dan. I play that every fucking day.
I listen to it at least 3 or 4 times a week. Yeah,
I mean, it's seriously like lifeblood at this point in time. Like, I have to listen to it. But no, actually, I go back a couple of years since it's been Industrial December. It's been Hesitation Marks by 9 Inch Nails for me. I love that album.
It's Christmas. It's Industrial December. So I'm going to say that everybody should listen to A Very Project 86 Christmas.
Aw, it's supposed to be not Project 86.
It doesn't have to be not Project 86. There is no rule that says the album of the week cannot be the artist
that we're talking about. He can make the rules whatever he wants.
That's true. He kind of controls everything. He's like fucking Emperor Palpatine over here.
It was me the whole time.
But
Dustin, where can people find everything you do, including Drunken Lullabies?
Well, if you want to go on Facebook, you can type in Drunken Lullabies Podcast. You can also type in Drunk at the Movies. Both have separate pages that will give you updates, show notes, links, all that fun stuff. We're on all the regular podcast apps, your Apple Podcasts, Google Play, iHeartRadio, Stitcher, all that fun stuff. Just look it up. Craft Beer Digest, a newer show, but it is available as well. But, drunkenlullabiespodcast.com will get you all the details you need. We have Instagram and all that kind of stuff, and it's linked to there. But new shows for Drunken Lullabies every Sunday. Drunk at the Movies comes out every Wednesday. And apparently now every other Monday is Craft Beer Digest. So I'm now monopolizing 3 days of the week. So I have 4 days left to figure out another 4 shows and start my own network of nothing but me talking 7 days a week.
Jesus.
Are they going to include beer?
So far.
There you go.
Well, we appreciate you coming on and hanging out with us, talking about Project 86. And on that note, this has been episode 43 of Discography Discussion. Thank you for listening. You can like us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter at discussmetal. Subscribe to our podcast everywhere you listen to podcasts, including Google Play, iTunes, and Stitcher. Visit discussmetal.com for all things discography discussion, and please send questions and comments to danandjoeshow@gmail.com. If you are not a patron, you can become one at patreon.com/discussmetal. We have some sweet perks.
Give me your money.
This was the first record that featured the new Project 86, which is...
Oh, Dan's happy.
We have a man down.
Man down.
You all right, dude?
That actually wasn't drunk.
Woo! You still got video running, Dustin?
Oh, yeah. Yes, I do.
All right, so you got to see all that fun?
Yeah, I can't see the table. His hands are off screen, so I'm assuming he's trying to fix something.
But you saw the
tumble?
Humpty Dumpty for a fall?
Yeah, I saw that. The hazards of podcasting.
Who knew they existed, right?
All right.
Hey, that's why we need a couch.
Yeah, you play a dangerous game with the standing and then the sitting down and then the standing and the sitting down.
All right, so that happened.
Yeah, that was fun.
You almost made it, man. We only got 2 albums left to talk about.
I know.
2?
I'm not even drunk either. I can't even
doesn't even have a good excuse.
I can't even use that as anything. It was literally one of those
lack of coordination.
I moved the I moved the stool under where I thought was my ass and then started to sit down and
then it wasn't there.
Yeah, it's even funnier when you're fat. I can only imagine how great that must have looked on video. I would watch that shit over and over again on slow-mo.
It was
Why are we
slightly
not
amusing.
Oh, I'm sure it was. Like, dude, you got a story now. You're like, dude, so I'm talking to these guys, and this fucker just, like, falls off. Oh, man.
What was I going to say about this? Oh, yeah.
Consummate professional here.